Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Coach Lacey, and welcome to Rise and Shine with Morning Moon. This is, if you're watching on YouTube, this is Wellness with Watson. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and ding the bell for updates every time. You can be notified every time we go live here. If you haven't already anchored into your wellness foundations in the Rise and Shine with Morning Moon Facebook group, be sure to do so. Pop on over there and hit the checklist and rise and shine, anchor in with your foundations. If only one today. I'm trying to go for all 8, but we'll see. Oh, and it is Good Friday today. It is Friday, April 18th. And today marks a solemn moment in history. Good Friday. For those of you who aren't familiar with Good Friday, today is the day where Jesus was betrayed, arrested, and then willingly submitted and took on his mission, which left a profound impact on the world. And he did it with grace and with heart and with mercy. And as we reflect on this day and celebrate his love for us, even if you're not a Christian, you can celebrate rebirth and renewal. But we can be reminded not only of Jesus's immense sacrifice, but how it mirrors in our own lives and how we are called into chapters and seasons, situations that might seem totally overwhelming or even impossible. And over the last few weeks, I've been talking about changing seasons and chapters and navigating through unexpected twists, turns, going up that mountain of our life, carrying our backpack, taking out what no longer serves us, and then finding treasures in those dark places. You know, the glimmers. What are the glimmers in your life? And today, I want us to consider what it truly means to face the darkness in our own difficult moments, right? Those moments where we have to muster up all the courage and all the trust and every skill that we have to just get through the trial. And in the Bible, the book of Isaiah, it promises, I will give you all the treasures of the darkness. And sometimes the glimmers, when we're looking for treasures and glimmers in our life, they're not things that are easily to spot. They're the lessons, the moments afterwards that we're thinking back on what we've learned and the strength we had to muster up and the growth that we gained when we surrender our own will and we trust. And we trust that there's a calling on our life and that there's a divine design and a bigger scenario unfolding. That we are not the author, but we are the storyteller. And the way that we tell our story matters. The inflection matters. The words we use matter. But the story itself, it's not ours. There's a divine design and there's a calling on your life. We did not create ourselves. So we must know that there is something more for us. And you have to trust. You have to trust in that. You know, when on this day in history, before Jesus was arrested, he was in the garden and he was praying to God, trying to bargain. Is there any other way other than the cross? But there was no other way. And Jesus was painfully aware of the difficult road ahead, knowing that he was going to die, not just die, but die a brutal, excruciating death. A death of his arms being ripped out of the sockets there and his shoulders being ripped out of the sockets, being whipped and cut and nailed into and have thorns on your head, all the things that he endured. He knew that this pain was coming, but he willingly, with a tender heart of mercy and kindness, submitted to the greater story. And he was in the garden praying, not my will be done, but yours. But yours. This is the ultimate example of surrender and submission to divine design and a bigger plan, and a reminder that our lives are not our own and there is something more. We all believe in something more, but what is that? You want to believe in aliens that are going to take you away, or do you believe that there's a calling on your life? That's so much more powerful when you submit to the bigger picture. We're part of a bigger puzzle, a greater story. We're each called to fulfill a unique, more divine purpose. Sometimes, when you have your life, it feels like a puzzle. It feels like you've thrown this puzzle out onto the table and all the pieces are mismatched. But you find the ones that, the pieces of the sky that go together and the pieces of the ground that go together, whatever it is, the border pieces that go together. And then it starts to make sense because every single piece has its place, even if we don't see it immediately. Even when a puzzle piece is missing, how do we respond? And how do we respond to life when the puzzle is thrown out on the table? Are we going to yell at the puzzle? Are we going to just walk away from the puzzle, or are we going to try to put the pieces together? So today I invite you to think a little more deeply about your life. How do we respond when we're placed into situations that we never expected to be on, or maybe we didn't ask for? Maybe we didn't ask to be in that situation. Maybe we did ask to be in that situation. There are seasons in life where we're disappointed, or we feel like we're going through a tough time, or we're facing some tough truths or realities that we wish were not ours. Those moments where people die, or you go through a traumatic situation, or you lose a job that you love, or a home that you love, those moments where you're just like, what is going on here? How do you respond to those moments? You know, how do we show up when our relationships or our dreams or even our identities seem to shatter right before our own eyes? When the person that you thought you were wasn't anymore, or the life you thought you were going to live is not anymore. How do you respond? Do you break and shut down? Do you cut everything off? Do you go into freeze mode and stop doing everything? Do you stay parked? Don't stay parked. We need to keep driving. We need to keep going. And sometimes we have to face those moments of difficulty that we wish that we would rather live without. Sometimes the puzzle's a little bit more complicated and we have to work a little harder to put it together. And maybe you feel betrayed by people, places, and things, or even your own expectations, like your life didn't turn out the way that you thought it should. And perhaps you're struggling to see the why behind your own circumstances. But remember that it's not always about seeing right away. It's about trusting, and things will unfold as they should, as long as you do your part. They won't unfold unless you do your part. They will unfold in a different way, but not in the way that you would hope if you're not anchoring in. This is where we anchor in to our foundations so that our life can have a strong foundation of wellness. It's having faith. Even faith of a small mustard seed is just enough. It's believing deeply in the promise that whatever you're going through right now is exactly what you're supposed to be going through. You grow through what you go through. This is shaping you into the person that you're destined to become. And I personally know the pain of wanting to control outcomes. And I'm in moments right in this moment. I there's things that I wish that I can control the outcome and know the answers to and have, you know, have all the pieces put together. But, it's not mine to hold, it's not mine to control. It's mine to hold my emotions and but it's not my story to control. And I just need to show up. And when we surrender genuinely and completely and trust in God's divine design and the calling on our life, then it starts to align in ways that we never imagined possible. So today on this Good Friday, as you reflect on the ultimate surrender, the ultimate price that was paid, that Jesus paid for us, ask yourself, where in your life are you surrendering, or where are you resisting the plan, God's plan and the divine design, because it's uncomfortable, or because it's painful, or because you have to do more, or show up a little harder? What if your current struggle is preparing you for something bigger than yourself, something greater, something more? There's always something more. Even if you think you're at the end of your life, you're not, there's always something more. Even if you're on your last dying day, there's always something more. So how can you honor your story? And how can you honor the legacy of those who've gone before you? And by how you show up. How do you want to show up in the world? We talk about that a lot here. How do you want to show up in the world? One of the best mentors I ever had used to ask me that question. And I ask myself that question every day. How do you want to show up in the world? Sometimes the darkest moments in our life lead to the biggest great breakthroughs. There are treasures hidden in those dark moments. There's light in the darkness. You just have to find it. Those glimmers. Where are the glimmers? Where can you find strength? And where can you find joy and clarity and your deeper purpose? When you embrace the difficult seasons rather than running or resisting, you're able to fully actualize what is going on in your story and how to plug in the pieces of your puzzle. So I want you to honor today, no matter where you're at in your spiritual journey. You could be watching me and you might not believe the same as me. You might just think that this is history, that Jesus is history. You might just think it's a story, but it is history. So the sacrifice that Jesus made in history by choosing to trust and deeply, deeply love boldly and surrender gracefully for the bigger mission, for a bigger story. No matter what you believe, that story of a tender heart of mercy and miracles and divine design, that story has so many lessons to be learned about life. It doesn't matter what you believe, even if you just were to ponder that story just for this weekend because it's Easter. No matter what you believe, pondering the sacrifice that was given in the name of love and mercy, it's just something so much bigger than ourselves. So just remember that your greatest challenge might just be your biggest blessing. And it's setting the stage for your own story to be redeemed, So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here this week. It's Friday. Anchor in. Make sure to anchor in deeply, and trust that just as Jesus' story doesn't end at the cross, neither do ours in the struggles. There's joy and purpose and victory ahead. And I hope that you have a wonderful Easter weekend. And if you are facing challenges this weekend with people that you feel like don't understand you, or you're feeling outcast or lonely, just know you're not alone. And there's a calling on your life. And anchor into your wellness foundations. Anytime you're feeling lost, lonely, despair, angry, anchor into your foundations. And if you don't know where to find the foundations, go to my group on Facebook, Rise and Shine with Morning Moon. You'll find the foundations every single day on the checklist that is in the pinned post. Or you can go to my website, www.lacyjwatson.com, and download the checklist there and anchor in. I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend and get some rest. Enjoy the activities, and I will see you on Monday. Ciao.